Long before modern cities covered the world in light, before roads, engines, and towering skylines, the people of the North told stories beside firelight during the coldest nights imaginable. Stories carried through snowstorms, across dark forests, and over freezing seas beneath skies filled with stars. And among all those stories, none were more feared than the story of the end. Not the end of a kingdom, not the fall of an empire, the end of the world itself. The Norse called it Ragnarök. In Norse mythology, Ragnarök was not simply a battle waiting somewhere in the distant future, it was destiny itself. The gods already knew it would come one day. That's one of the most fascinating things about these myths. The Norse gods were powerful, but they were never truly safe. They could bleed, they could fail, and eventually, even they would die. The ancient people who told these stories lived in an environment that could feel brutal and unpredictable. Long winters covered the land in darkness for months at a time. Storms destroyed ships without warning. Cold winds moved endlessly through mountains and frozen forests. Nature itself must have felt enormous to them, ancient, uncontrollable. And honestly, Ragnarök feels almost born from that environment. It is not a myth about perfect victory. It's a myth about knowing destruction will come and facing it anyway. According to the stories, the beginning of Ragnarök would first reveal itself slowly, quietly. The world would grow colder year after year. Winters would arrive without summers between them. Snow would cover the earth endlessly while the skies darkened above humanity. The Norse called this time Fimbulwinter, the great winter before the end. Imagine entire villages buried beneath snow while icy winds howl across empty mountains during endless nights, fires burning low inside wooden halls, families gathering close together while storms shake the world outside, and somewhere beyond the forests, destiny slowly approaching. As the world froze, order itself would begin collapsing. Brothers would turn against brothers. Kingdoms would fall into chaos. Old loyalties would disappear beneath fear and desperation. Even the gods of Asgard would know what was coming. Odin, ruler of the gods, spent much of his existence searching for wisdom about Ragnarök. And maybe that's what makes him such an interesting figure. He was not trying to avoid death completely. Deep down, Odin understood that some things cannot be escaped forever. Instead, he tried to prepare for the ending, to gather knowledge, to delay the darkness for as long as possible. Meanwhile, another figure waited in the shadows of these stories: Loki, trickster, shapeshifter, chaos bringer. Loki's presence moves through Norse mythology almost like a crack slowly spreading through ice. At first, small, almost harmless, but over time, becoming impossible to stop. And when Ragnarök finally arrived, Loki would stand against the gods themselves. The old world was already beginning to break apart, even if most of humanity could not yet see it beneath the snow and darkness of the north. Story progress. 10%. As Fimbulwinter continued, the world of Norse mythology grew quieter, but not peaceful. There's a difference. Peace feels warm, safe, but the silence before Ragnarök felt cold and heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath beneath endless snow. The forests of the north stood frozen beneath pale skies, while icy winds moved endlessly through mountains and empty valleys. Villages became isolated from one another. Travel grew dangerous. Food became scarce, and long nights stretched endlessly across the land. Inside wooden halls lit by firelight, people gathered close together, listening to the storms outside. And honestly, you can almost imagine how stories like Ragnarök must have felt during winters like that. Not distant myths, but something real. Something waiting beyond the darkness. Meanwhile, the gods of Asgard prepared for the ending they knew would eventually come. That's what makes Norse mythology feel so unique compared to many other mythologies. The gods are not all-powerful. They know destiny is stronger than they are. Even Odin, the ruler of the gods, understood that Ragnarök could not truly be stopped forever, but he still resisted it. And maybe there's something deeply human in that idea, fighting against the darkness, even when you know you cannot win completely. Odin spent years gathering knowledge about the coming apocalypse. He searched for wisdom through sacrifice, prophecy, and ancient magic. Some myths describe him wandering distant realms in disguise, seeking fragments of understanding about the future. Because if the end could not be prevented, perhaps it could at least be understood. And while Odin searched for answers, another threat continued, growing in silence. Fenrir, the monstrous wolf born from Loki's bloodline. According to the myths, Fenrir was not simply a beast. He represented destruction itself. The gods feared him from the beginning, because prophecies claimed he would one day break free and bring catastrophe upon the world. At first, Fenrir grew among the gods while still young, but with each passing year he became larger, stronger, more impossible to control. Eventually, even the gods themselves became afraid to approach him. Only the god Tyr still had enough courage to stand near the wolf. The stories surrounding Fenrir feel strangely tragic, because the more the gods feared him, the more they pushed him toward becoming the monster they believed he would become. And that pattern appears again and again throughout mythology. Fear creating the future it tries to avoid. Eventually, the gods decided Fenrir had to be bound before Ragnarök arrived, but no ordinary chains could hold him. The dwarves of Norse mythology forged a magical binding called Gleipnir, a ribbon-like chain created from impossible things. The sound of a cat's footsteps, the roots of mountains, the breath of fish, and other things the world could barely explain. When Fenrir realized the gods intended to trap him, he became suspicious. So he demanded that one of the gods place a hand inside his mouth as proof they would free him afterward. Only Tyr agreed. And when Fenrir discovered he had been deceived, he bit off Tyr's hand before being fully bound. That moment always feels important in the story, because after that, everything changes. The gods may have delayed Ragnarök, but now everyone knows it is truly coming. Fenrir waits beneath the earth. Loki's anger continues growing. The world remains trapped beneath endless winter, and somewhere beyond the frozen horizon, the final days of the gods move closer through the darkness. As the years passed beneath the shadow of Fimbulwinter, the feeling of inevitability grew stronger across the world of the gods. The snow never truly seemed to stop anymore. Rivers froze beneath thick layers of ice, while northern forests stood silent beneath endless storms. Even the stars above the world felt colder somehow. And beneath all of this, Ragnarök waited. The Norse myths describe destiny almost like a tide slowly rising toward the shore. No matter how much the gods prepared, no matter how much wisdom Odin gathered, the end continued, approaching one quiet step at a time. Meanwhile, Loki's hatred toward the gods deepened. That transformation is one of the most unsettling parts of the story, because Loki was not always an enemy of Asgard. In earlier myths, he moved among the gods freely, sometimes helping them, sometimes creating problems through tricks and chaos. But over time, the relationship between Loki and the gods slowly collapsed. Punishments, distrust, fear, everything built upon itself until eventually Loki became completely separated from the world of Asgard. According to the myths, after causing the death of Balder, the beloved god associated with light and peace, the gods finally turned fully against him. And honestly, Balder's death changes the emotional atmosphere of Norse mythology completely. Before that moment, Ragnarök still feels distant, like something waiting far away beyond the horizon. But after Balder dies, the world itself feels wounded. The gods understand the prophecy is no longer merely possible. Now it has begun. The story says Loki was captured and bound deep beneath the earth using chains created by the gods. Above him, a serpent dripped venom endlessly onto his face as punishment. Only his wife Sigyn remained beside him, holding a bowl to catch the poison and ease his suffering. But whenever the bowl filled and she turned away to empty it, venom struck Loki directly. The myths say his pain caused the earth itself to tremble. And somewhere in that image, Norse mythology becomes strangely emotional, not simply about monsters and battles, but about suffering, bitterness, and the slow collapse of relationships that can never truly be repaired. Now, the world moves closer to its final chapter. Fenrir remains chained, but growing stronger. Jormungandr, the great world serpent, waits beneath the ocean surrounding Midgard. Loki suffers beneath the earth, while hatred toward the gods burns endlessly inside him. And Odin continues preparing warriors in Valhalla for the final battle he knows will eventually come. Imagine Valhalla during these final years before Ragnarök. An enormous hall lit by fire and torchlight beneath northern skies. Warriors training endlessly while storms rage outside across frozen mountains. Everyone knows why they are there. Not for endless victory, not for peace, but for the final battle at the end of the world. And perhaps that is what gives Norse mythology its unique feeling. The gods are brave, not because they believe they will survive, but because they choose to stand against the darkness anyway, even when destiny itself has already spoken. And then, according to the old Norse stories, the final signs began to appear. Not suddenly, not all at once, but like cracks spreading slowly across a frozen world, already weakened by fear, winter, and prophecy. The winds grew harsher, the seas became more violent, and across Midgard, the world of humanity, people began turning against one another as order completely collapsed. The old bonds of loyalty disappeared. Families broke apart. Kingdoms fell into chaos. Violence spread through lands already exhausted by endless winter. The Norse myths describe this period almost like civilization itself unraveling beneath the weight of destiny. And honestly, it feels strangely realistic in a way. Because before worlds collapse physically, they often collapse emotionally first. Hope disappears, trust disappears, and eventually people begin believing nothing can be saved anymore. Meanwhile, beneath the earth and beneath the sea, the ancient forces waiting for Ragnarök finally began breaking free. Fenrir's chains started to crack. The great wolf had spent years trapped beneath the weight of prophecy and fear, growing stronger in darkness while hatred toward the gods deepened. Now the earth itself trembled as the monstrous wolf struggled against the magical bindings holding him. At the same time, deep beneath the ocean surrounding Midgard, Jormungandr, the world serpent, began rising from the sea. The myths say the serpent was so enormous that it wrapped around the entire world beneath the ocean. When it finally moved, storms crashed violently across the waters, while massive waves struck distant shores beneath black skies. And somewhere beneath the earth, Loki's chains finally shattered as well. After ages of punishment and suffering, he emerged into a world already collapsing around him. That moment always feels important, because Ragnarök is not simply the destruction of the gods. It is the return of everything the gods once tried to bury, chain, or control. Fear returning, chaos returning, the old darkness breaking free. And now there was no stopping it anymore. In Asgard, the gods understood what was happening immediately. The final battle had arrived. Odin gathered the gods and the warriors of Valhalla together for the last time. Imagine that atmosphere for a moment. The sky above Asgard covered in storm clouds and firelight. The sound of distant thunder echoing across the heavens. Warriors preparing their armor beneath torchlit halls, while everyone silently understands they are marching toward a battle many of them will never survive. And still they go. That's the part of Ragnarök that always stays with people, the courage. Not because victory is guaranteed, but because standing against the darkness still matters, even when the ending cannot be escaped. Soon, the bridge Bifrost, the rainbow bridge connecting worlds, would break beneath the chaos of Ragnarök, and beyond it, The armies of the end were already approaching through fire, ice, and shadow. The world had entered its final hours. Now the world of Norse mythology stood at the edge of complete destruction. The skies above Asgard burned with storms, while the earth below trembled beneath the movement of ancient creatures, finally unleashed after ages of waiting. Nothing remained calm anymore. The oceans crashed violently against shattered coastlines. Mountains split apart beneath endless thunder. And across the darkened world, fire and ice moved together as Ragnarök consumed everything in its path. The old stories say that Heimdall, the guardian of Bifrost, finally sounded the Yaller horn. Its echo carried across every realm. A warning. The final battle had begun. Imagine hearing that sound beneath black northern skies, while fire spreads across distant mountains and the sea itself rises against the land. Every god in Asgard understood what it meant. There would be no returning after this. Odin gathered the gods one final time before the battle. Thor stood ready with Mjolnir in his hands, while lightning rolled endlessly through the heavens above him. Tyr prepared, despite already sacrificing his hand long ago. Freyr marched toward battle, even knowing he lacked the weapon he once carried. And somewhere near the edge of the battlefield stood Odin himself, older now, wearier, but still facing destiny directly. That's what makes Odin such a powerful figure in these myths. He spends much of his existence searching for knowledge about the end. Yet when the end finally arrives, he does not run from it. He walks toward it willingly. Meanwhile, the enemies of the gods approached from every direction. Loki marched beside forces of chaos against the world he once lived within. Fenrir's enormous form moved beneath storm clouds like living destruction itself. Jormungandr rose from the sea while poison spread across the sky and water. And from the south came Surtur, the fire giant, carrying a flaming sword bright enough to set the world itself ablaze. The battlefield of Ragnarök does not feel like an ordinary war. It feels cosmic, like reality itself beginning to collapse beneath forces too large to survive. And honestly, there's something strangely beautiful about the way Norse mythology tells this story, because the gods know what will happen. The prophecies never promised a perfect ending. Many of them are destined to die here. Odin knows Fenrir will kill him. Thor knows his battle against Jormungandr will also become his final moments. And still, none of them abandon the fight. The Norse people who created these myths seem to believe that courage mattered more than survival, that dignity still existed even in defeat. So beneath burning skies and endless storms, the gods march toward their final battle, while the world around them begins falling apart. And somewhere beyond the fire and thunder, the end of the old world finally arrives. The final battle of Ragnarök unfolded beneath a sky that no longer looked like the world the gods once ruled. The heavens burned with fire and stormlight, while the earth itself cracked beneath the weight of the conflict. Every realm seemed to tremble together, and somewhere within all that chaos, destiny finally reached the gods exactly as the prophecies had promised. The old Norse stories describe these moments with an almost painful calmness, not because the battle was small, but because everyone already understood what was coming. Odin rode forward first, the ruler of Asgard, the god who had spent countless years searching for wisdom about the future, now faced the very creature he feared most. Fenrir. The enormous wolf moved through the battlefield like living destruction itself, its jaws stretching impossibly wide beneath the burning sky. And when Odin confronted him, the prophecy was fulfilled. Fenrir devoured the king of the gods. That moment feels incredibly heavy in Norse mythology, because Odin was never foolish about his fate. He knew this would happen, and still he faced it anyway. Not because he believed he could escape destiny, but because turning away from it would have meant abandoning everything he stood for. Soon after Odin's fall, his son Vidar stepped forward and avenged him, tearing apart the monstrous wolf during the chaos of battle. But Ragnarök continued. There was no stopping it now. Across the battlefield, Thor finally confronted Jormungandr, the world serpent, the storm god, against the creature large enough to wrap around the earth itself. Lightning exploded across the heavens, while oceans crashed violently against the collapsing world around them. Thor struck the serpent down with Mjolnir, but the victory came at a terrible cost. After taking only a few final steps away from the battle, Thor collapsed from the serpent's poison and died beneath the darkened sky. And honestly, that part of the story captures the spirit of Ragnarök perfectly. Victory and death existing together. Nothing survives unchanged, not even the strongest gods. Meanwhile, Loki and Heimdall faced one another in the chaos. Two figures, tied to destiny from the very beginning, finally meeting at the end of the world. The myths say they killed each other during the battle. One after another, the great figures of Norse mythology disappeared into fire, storm, and darkness. And above them all, Surtur's flames spread across creation itself. The fire giant raised his burning sword toward the heavens, and the world began to collapse completely. Mountains shattered, forests burned. The oceans swallowed the land beneath endless waves, and eventually the world itself sank beneath the sea. The old universe was gone. Asgard destroyed. The gods fallen. The age of the North consumed by fire and water beneath the silence that followed the end. And then, after the fire, after the storms, After the oceans swallowed the broken world, there was silence, a deep silence, the kind that only comes after something ancient finally ends. The old Norse myths become surprisingly calm here. You would expect the story to end with endless darkness or complete destruction forever, but it doesn't. Instead, Ragnarök transforms into something quieter, almost peaceful. The flames eventually fade, the storms disappear, and slowly the sea becomes calm again beneath the empty sky. Then, according to the myths, something remarkable happens. The world rises again. A new earth slowly emerges from the ocean, green and renewed beneath the returning sunlight. Forests begin growing once more. Rivers flow across untouched land, and for the first time since the beginning of Ragnarök, the world feels still, not dead, resting. That detail changes the entire meaning of the story, because Ragnarök is not only about destruction, it's also about renewal. The Norse people understood something important. Winter eventually gives way to spring. Night eventually gives way to morning. And even after unimaginable loss, life continues. Some of the gods survive as well, not many, but enough for a new age to begin. Vidar and Vali remain after the fall of Odin. Thor's sons survive and carry Mjolnir into the new world after their father's death. And in one of the most emotional parts of the myth, Balder returns. The god whose death once signaled the beginning of the end now walks again beneath peaceful skies. The darkness that consumed the old world slowly fades into memory, and somewhere upon the renewed earth, humanity begins again too. The myths describe two human survivors hidden safely during Ragnarök within the shelter of the world tree Yggdrasil. When the fires end, they emerge into the quiet new world beneath the returning sun. And honestly, there's something deeply comforting about that image. After all the fear, chaos, and destruction, life still remains. The Norse myths never promise a perfect world without suffering. But they do suggest that endings are not always final. Sometimes the world breaks apart so something new can grow afterward. And maybe that is why Ragnarök has survived for so many centuries. Because beneath all the monsters, battles, and burning skies, it reflects something deeply human. The understanding that difficult times come. Worlds change. People lose things they love. And still, somehow, life continues forward. Now the storms are gone. The oceans are calm again. The stars return quietly above the northern sky, and the world, reborn from fire and darkness, slowly begins breathing once more. And so, the world of Ragnarök slowly fades into legend. The fires that once consumed the heavens are gone now. The oceans rest quietly beneath pale northern skies. while forests grow again across lands once shattered by the end of the world. And somewhere in that silence, the old myths remain, carried through generations beside firelight during long winter nights, passed from storyteller to storyteller across centuries of snow, sea, and memory. That's probably the most beautiful thing about Norse mythology. Even though Ragnarök is a story about destruction, it never becomes hopeless. The old Norse people understood that life is fragile. Winters come, storms arrive, kingdoms fall apart. But they also understood something equally important. The world keeps moving forward. And honestly, maybe that's why these stories still feel powerful today. Not because of the monsters or battles alone, but because Ragnarök speaks to something very human. The fear of endings. The fear of losing the world we know. And at the same time, the quiet hope that something can still survive afterward. Even Odin, Thor, Loki, and the great halls of Asgard eventually became part of the past within the myths themselves. The gods were never eternal in the way many other mythologies imagined divine beings to be. The Norse accepted that even greatness fades. Even the strongest warriors eventually disappear into memory, and maybe that acceptance gave their stories a kind of honesty that still feels emotional now, because Ragnarök does not promise immortality. It promises courage, the courage to face darkness, even when the outcome cannot be fully controlled, the courage to continue living through uncertainty, winter, and loss. And in the end, the myths suggest that renewal is always possible. After every storm, the skies eventually clear again. After every winter, spring slowly returns. Now, the world of the gods has become quiet once more. The northern seas move calmly beneath moonlight. Cold winds drift through ancient forests, while distant mountains stand beneath the stars, exactly as they did long before the first storytellers spoke the names of Odin and Thor. The fire inside the Viking halls burns lower now. The stories have been told. The storm has passed. And somewhere beneath the endless northern sky, the world slowly drifts back into peaceful silence. The story comes to rest. And now, after the wars of the gods, the fall of the Titans, and the storms above Olympus, let the ancient world grow quieter for a while. Let the thunder fade into the distance, and let the mind slow down beneath the calm skies of ancient Greece. Imagine the Mediterranean world thousands of years ago. The sun has already begun disappearing behind distant hills, painting the sea in soft shades of gold and deep blue. Along the coastline, small Greek cities rest quietly beside the water. White stone buildings glow beneath the final light of evening, while narrow streets slowly empty as night approaches. Fishing boats drift gently in calm harbors. Olive trees move softly in the warm wind, And somewhere in the distance, waves roll endlessly against ancient shores that have watched civilizations rise and fall for centuries. High above the cities, temples stand silently on rocky hills. Their marble columns catch the fading sunlight, while torches begin flickering beside worn stone steps. The world feels slower here, older. There are no engines, no electric lights, no noise beyond the sounds of nature, distant conversations, and the sea itself breathing against the coastline. In the marketplaces below, the final merchants close their stalls for the night. Clay pottery rests quietly beneath linen covers, while the scent of olive oil, herbs, and sea air drifts gently through the streets. Somewhere nearby, a philosopher continues speaking softly beneath a shaded courtyard, while students listen beside flickering lanterns. Further uphill, families gather inside homes built from warm stone and wood. Oil lamps glow gently against the walls, while evening meals are shared in calm conversation. And above it all, the stars slowly begin appearing over Greece. The same stars ancient sailors once followed across dark waters. The same constellations poets and storytellers look toward while speaking about gods, heroes, and distant worlds beyond the horizon. The air grows cooler now. The sea breeze moves softly through olive groves and marble pathways, while the sound of cicadas slowly fills the warm night. Somewhere far away, a temple bell echoes faintly across the hills, and for a moment, the ancient world feels completely at rest. No wars, no prophecies, no storms from Olympus, just the quiet atmosphere of ancient Greece beneath the stars. A world slowly drifting into sleep beside the endless Mediterranean Sea. The night deepens slowly over ancient Greece. The last traces of sunlight disappear behind the distant horizon, and the Mediterranean becomes darker and calmer beneath the growing sky of stars. Along the harbors, small wooden boats move gently with the rhythm of the water, tied carefully beside stone docks, worn smooth by countless years of footsteps and sea wind. Most of the city has fallen quiet now. The busy sounds of the marketplace are gone. The voices of merchants have faded into silence. Only occasional footsteps echo softly through narrow stone streets lit by scattered oil lamps. From higher ground, the temples continue watching over the sleeping city. Their marble pillars glow faintly beneath moonlight, standing motionless against the dark hills like guardians from another age. And honestly, there's something deeply peaceful about imagining the ancient world at night. History often feels loud when we study it. Wars, kings, empires collapsing. But most people who lived in ancient Greece probably experienced life in quieter ways. Preparing meals, listening to the sea, walking home beneath torchlight after long days beneath the sun. Somewhere inside a small courtyard house, a family sits together, finishing their evening meal while Olive oil lamps flicker gently against white stone walls. Nearby, an old storyteller speaks softly to a group of children about heroes from long ago. Perhaps he tells stories of Odysseus crossing dark seas beneath Poseidon's storms, or of Achilles standing before the gates of Troy beneath the burning sky. Outside the city, the countryside rests beneath silver moonlight. Olive groves stretch quietly across rolling hills, while distant sheep bells echo faintly through the cool air. And above everything, the stars remain impossibly clear. Without modern lights, the night sky feels enormous here. Ancient astronomers once studied these same stars carefully, trying to understand the order of the universe through slow observation and patient thought. To them, the heavens were not empty. They were alive with meaning. Every constellation carried stories. Every movement across the sky felt connected to destiny or time itself. Meanwhile, the sea continues its endless rhythm against the coastline. Waves rise and fall softly against stone harbors, while warm wind drifts through cypress trees and temple courtyards. And little by little, the ancient Greek world grows quieter still. The torches burn lower. The streets empty completely. The temples stand silently beneath the stars. And somewhere, beneath the calm night sky of the Mediterranean, the ancient world slowly falls asleep. Far beyond the sleeping cities and quiet temples, the Mediterranean continues stretching endlessly into the darkness. Ancient sailors once believed these waters connected every corner of the known world. Egypt to the south, Phoenicia to the east, Italy far beyond the western horizon. But tonight the sea feels calm and almost timeless. Moonlight reflects softly across the surface of the water, while gentle waves move against rocky shores that have existed long before the first Greek cities were ever built. High in the hills above the coastline, small paths wind through olive groves and cypress trees. The air here is cooler now. You can almost imagine the scent of sea salt mixing with dry earth and distant wood smoke drifting upward from homes below. Somewhere far away, a dog barks briefly in the night before silence returns again. And honestly, this is probably the side of history we think about the least. Not the battles, not the rulers, just the ordinary quietness of ancient life, the moments between major events. A fisherman preparing his nets before sunrise. A traveler resting beside a roadside fire after days of walking. A philosopher sitting alone beneath the stars, listening to the sound of wind moving through stone columns. Ancient Greece was filled with these quiet moments, and in many ways they are what made the world feel alive. Because even while myths about gods and heroes spread across the Mediterranean, ordinary people still woke each morning to simple routines. They baked bread, gathered water, worked in vineyards and olive fields beneath the warm sun. Children ran through narrow streets, while elders sat beneath shaded courtyards, telling stories from memory rather than books. At night, families often gathered outside their homes, where the air was cooler, speaking softly beneath lantern light, while constellations slowly crossed the sky overhead, and the stars truly mattered to them. Without modern cities drowning the heavens in artificial light, the night sky must have felt endless, almost overwhelming, the Milky Way stretching clearly across the darkness like a river of light above the ancient world. Perhaps somewhere along the coast tonight, a young sailor looks upward, wondering what exists beyond the horizon. Perhaps a poet sits awake beside a dim oil lamp, writing thoughts about love, destiny, or the gods. Or perhaps most of the world simply sleeps peacefully beneath the soft sound of waves moving through the Mediterranean night. The temples remain silent now, the marketplaces empty, even the sea breeze has slowed, and little by little, ancient Greece drifts deeper into stillness beneath the stars. As the night grows later, the ancient world feels softer somehow. The sharp heat of the day has disappeared completely now, leaving only cool air drifting slowly through marble streets and quiet courtyards. In Athens, the Acropolis rises silently above the sleeping city, its temples glowing faintly beneath silver moonlight. The Parthenon stands high against the dark sky, calm and motionless, watching over generations that come and go beneath it. And below those ancient stones, life continues quietly in small and ordinary ways. A final lantern burns beside a doorway. A distant conversation fades behind wooden shutters. Somewhere, footsteps move slowly across stone roads before disappearing into silence again. Most people are asleep now. Fishermen resting before dawn. Merchants preparing for tomorrow's markets. Travelers sleeping beneath simple blankets in roadside inns beside the sea. And beyond the cities, the countryside rests beneath endless constellations. Fields of olive trees stretch across dark hills like shadows frozen beneath the moon. The wind moves gently through them, soft enough to barely disturb the silence. If you listen carefully, you can almost imagine hearing the ancient world breathing, not through machines or crowded streets, but through water, wind, firelight, and distant waves. History often makes ancient Greece feel larger than life, a place of philosophers, heroes, and gods. But nights like this remind us that it was also simply a world where ordinary people lived quietly beneath the same stars we still see today. Somebody somewhere is still awake, though. Perhaps a scholar sits beside an oil lamp studying geometry or poetry, while melted wax gathers slowly along the table. Perhaps a sailor stares across the harbor toward the open sea, thinking about tomorrow's journey. Or maybe, An old storyteller quietly repeats myths that have already survived hundreds of years by nothing more than memory and spoken words. Stories of Zeus, Athena, Odysseus, the Trojan War. Stories carried from one generation to the next beneath skies just like this one. And as the hours pass, even those voices begin to disappear into the night. The Mediterranean remains calm. The temples stand silent. The stars continue moving slowly overhead. And ancient Greece, wrapped in moonlight and sea wind, drifts peacefully toward the quietest hours before dawn. Now the night has reached its deepest and quietest hour, the kind of silence that only exists long after midnight, when even the restless parts of the world finally seem to slow down. Ancient Greece rests beneath the stars, almost completely undisturbed. The streets are empty now. Oil lamps burn low beside temple walls and narrow alleyways, their soft golden light flickering gently against worn marble and stone. From somewhere near the harbor, the sound of water softly touching wooden docks moves through the darkness in slow and endless rhythm. Everything feels calmer here, simpler. Even time itself seems slower in this ancient world. Far above the sleeping cities, the constellations continue their silent movement across the heavens. The same stars watched by philosophers, sailors, poets, and travelers thousands of years ago. Ancient people often believed the sky carried meaning beyond human understanding, that somewhere among the stars lived the stories of gods and heroes, forever drifting above the earth. And honestly, beneath a sky like this, it becomes easy to understand why they believed it. Without noise or distraction, the universe feels enormous. The mountains surrounding the cities fade into soft shadows beneath moonlight, while cool air moves through olive trees and quiet hillsides. In the distance, a small fire still burns outside a countryside home where a shepherd rests beside sleeping animals before morning arrives. Near the coast, fishing nets hang, drying beside silent boats waiting for dawn. The sea continues breathing slowly against the shore, always moving, always returning. And somewhere inside the quiet temples of Greece, statues of forgotten gods stand motionless in the darkness, while incense smoke rises gently into the night air. The ancient world feels very far away now, and yet strangely close at the same time, because beneath all the history, myths, and ruins, these were still human lives, people searching for meaning, for safety, for peace beside the sea beneath the stars. Perhaps that is why ancient Greece still feels comforting to imagine at night, not because it was perfect, but because its world moved with a slower rhythm, a world of firelight instead of electric light, of waves instead of engines, of stories spoken softly beneath open skies. And now, as the final hours before sunrise approach, The Mediterranean remains calm. The temples remain silent. The stars continue watching quietly overhead. And the ancient Greek world sleeps peacefully beneath the endless night sky. And now, as the cool winds of the Mediterranean slowly fade into the distance, let us travel somewhere even older, far beyond the mountains of Greece, beyond the islands and marble temples, to the lands where some of the world's first civilizations once rose beside ancient rivers. Mesopotamia. Before we begin, slowly, just allow yourself to relax. You're about to travel back in time, not as a history lesson, but as a quiet experience. A journey into the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, the cradle of early civilization, where rivers shaped cities and cities shaped history. Imagine yourself standing in this ancient world. The air is warm, the ground is dry and timeless, and everything feels distant yet present. There's no rush here, no urgency, only the slow rhythm of history unfolding. As you begin to walk, you are not just observing the past, you are moving through it. The sound of distant rivers, the soft wind over stone paths, the quiet life of ancient cities, all begin to surround you. As you begin to walk, you are not just observing the past, you are moving through it. The sound of distant rivers, the soft wind over stone paths, the quiet life of ancient cities, all begin to surround you. And with every step you take, your thoughts begin to slow, your breath becomes softer, your body becomes lighter. You are safe here. You are calm here. And now, as we move deeper into this ancient world, we begin our journey through Mesopotamia. And slowly, very gently, you may begin to drift.
Not away from the story, but into it. Let the ancient world guide you. And as we continue, you may find yourself slowly falling asleep while walking through history.
The night is calm, not completely silent, but soft. The kind of quiet that feels alive, as if the world itself is slowly breathing. You are walking slowly, without effort. The ground beneath your feet is warm stone, still holding the memory of the sun. Each step is steady and quiet, blending into the rhythm of the night. Above you, the sky stretches wide and endless, filled with distant stars. In the distance, you begin to see a city, ancient, vast, and resting peacefully in the night. Babylon. It doesn't call to you, yet you move toward it. The road feels calm, and time itself seems to slow with every step. A gentle breeze passes by, warm and soft, carrying the scent of earth and water. You take a slow breath and begin to relax even more. The night continues, and you are still walking. As you come closer, tall walls rise before you, softened by moonlight. Torches flicker gently, casting a warm and steady glow. You step inside, and the air changes, cooler, softer, more calm. Somewhere nearby, you hear water flowing, a quiet and steady sound that draws you forward. You follow it slowly through silent streets. Everything feels distant, peaceful, and unhurried. And then rising before you in soft layers, you see the hanging gardens. Water flows gently from one level to another. Leaves move softly in the night air. You take a step forward, then another. The world becomes even quieter as you enter. The garden breathes slowly, and the night continues. You move deeper into the gardens, and the world becomes even quieter. Not empty, but softer, as if every sound has been gently lowered. The air is cool here, comfortable. It touches your skin like a calm breath. Water is everywhere now. Not loud, not rushing, just flowing, steady, endless. You follow a narrow stone path between the terraces. Above you, layers of green rise into the night sky. Below you, water moves slowly through carved channels. Each drop of water falls gently from one level to another. Soft, rhythmic, like the garden itself is breathing in silence. You slow down without even noticing, your steps becoming lighter, quieter. The sound of water surrounds you now, not overwhelming, but complete, filling every space between the stones, between the leaves, between your thoughts. Somewhere nearby, a small stream flows under stone arches, hidden, protected, constant. You pause for a moment and simply listen. There is no need to move quickly here, no need to reach anywhere. The garden does not ask anything from you. It only exists and invites you to exist with it. Leaves shift softly above your head, a gentle movement, almost invisible, like the night is breathing through them. Water continues to flow, layer after layer, stone after stone, time after time. And you realize something simple. You are no longer just walking through the garden. You are part of its silence now. Everything slows even more, thoughts fading gently into the background, leaving only the sound of water and calm. The hanging gardens feel endless here, not because they are large, but because they are still. And in that stillness, you begin to relax even deeper. The night continues quietly around you, and you continue with it. You stay in the quiet of the gardens. Time here feels softer now, almost as if it no longer moves forward in a straight line, but flows gently like water. The sound of the streams never changes, always steady, always calm. You begin to walk again, but slower than before, as if even movement has become optional. Stone steps lead you slightly higher into the terraces, each step warm from the memory of the day. Above you, hanging vines sway almost invisibly in the night air, soft shadows moving across stone walls. You notice how the water is guided through small carved channels, each one carefully shaped, each one letting water pass without resistance. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is simply continuous. Somewhere deeper in the garden, water falls from a higher level, a soft, distant sound like a whisper repeating itself through stone. You follow that sound without thinking, not because you must, but because it feels natural. The air becomes even cooler as you move upward, and more still. Every breath feels easier now, deeper, slower. You pass beneath an arch covered in plants, leaves gently brushing the stone above your head. For a moment you stop again, just standing there, listening. Nothing calls you forward, nothing pulls you back. There is only this moment, this quiet space between water and night. And in that space, everything feels balanced, soft, complete. The garden breathes slowly around you, and you breathe with it. The night continues, and you continue gently within it. You move even deeper into the upper terraces. The higher you go, the quieter everything becomes. Not because sound disappears, but because it no longer feels separate from you. Water still flows beside you, but now it sounds distant, like a memory of movement rather than movement itself. The stone here is older, smoother, shaped by time and constant water. You place your hand gently against it as you walk. It feels cool, still, grounded. Above, the garden opens slightly, revealing more of the night sky. Stars scattered like quiet thoughts across darkness. The air is lighter here, almost weightless, as if the garden is slowly releasing you from everything unnecessary. A soft breeze moves through the leaves, barely noticeable, yet it changes nothing and everything at the same time. You pause again, longer this time. There is no direction now, no path that feels more important than another. Only stillness, only breath. Somewhere far below, water continues its endless cycle through stone channels. But here, at this height, it feels like a distant heartbeat. Steady, calm. You begin to realize the garden is not something you are moving through anymore. It is something you are resting inside. The distinction between you and the garden begins to soften, like the edges of a dream gently fading. Everything becomes simpler, quieter, lighter. And in that simplicity, there is rest. The night holds you gently, and you no longer feel the need to go anywhere else. You remain in that quiet place. The upper terraces of the garden are now still around you, not empty, but complete in their silence. Even the sound of water feels distant here, like it belongs to another layer of the world. You stand between stone and sky, between movement and stillness. And for a moment, nothing changes. The night feels suspended, as if time itself has slowed down enough to be barely noticeable. A soft wind passes through the garden, touching leaves, then disappearing, without direction, without urgency. You breathe in slowly and hold nothing in return. The air feels clean, light, calming in a way that asks nothing from you. Below, the city of Babylon rests quietly. Its distant presence no longer feels separate, just part of the same calm world you are in. You take a small step forward, then stop again, not because you have arrived somewhere, but because there is nowhere else to reach. The hanging gardens are no longer something you observe. They are something you are surrounded by, something you exist within.
stone, water, leaves, night, all blending into a single quiet rhythm. Even your thoughts begin to slow, fading gently into the background, one by one.
Until there is almost nothing left to think, only feeling, only stillness. The garden does not change, and it does not need to, because it is already enough, exactly as it is. And you are enough here too, without movement, without effort. Just present, just resting, just part of the quiet night. You stay there a little longer without needing to move. The hanging gardens are completely still around you now, not silent in absence, but silent in fullness. Every sound that remains feels distant and softened. Water, wind, leaves, all blending into one gentle presence. You notice how even your awareness feels lighter, less focused, less sharp, as if the garden is slowly carrying your thoughts away from you, one by one. There is no need to hold on to anything anymore, no need to follow anything. Just this moment, this quiet space, this still night. The stone beneath you feels steady and warm from the day that has passed. The air above you feels endless and calm. And between them, you simply exist. Far below, Babylon continues its quiet life, but it no longer feels distant, only connected, like part of the same breath. You take another slow breath and release it without effort. Nothing changes, and yet everything feels softer. The garden does not guide you anymore. It simply holds you. And in that holding, there is comfort, there is calm, there is rest. You no longer feel the need to continue walking, because the journey... And now, even that sense of movement begins to fade. Not suddenly, but gently, like a final layer of awareness slowly dissolving into the night. The hanging gardens remain around you, but they no longer feel like a place you are in. They feel like a feeling, soft, endless, calm. The sound of water continues somewhere far away, but it no longer pulls your attention. It simply exists, like a distant memory of peace. You are no longer searching, no longer observing. There is only stillness now. The air feels heavier in a comforting way, as if it is gently holding you in place, not restricting, just supporting. Your thoughts slow even further, each one fading before it can fully form, until there is almost nothing left to follow. Only awareness, soft and quiet. The garden, the city, the world beyond it, all begin to feel distant, not gone,
just far away. And what remains is this moment, this calm.
And as you drift even deeper into stillness, the boundaries between sound and silence begin to fade completely. The hanging gardens are no longer something you can clearly sense, not because they are gone, but because they are no longer separate from you. Everything becomes softer, quieter, slower. Even the idea of movement feels distant now, like something that belongs to another time. There is only calm, only presence, only the gentle rhythm of stillness that holds everything together. You do not need to understand anything anymore. You do not need to follow anything. All that remains is this quiet sense of being, light, soft, endless. The sound of water, the breath of wind, the memory of stone and garden, all of it fades into a single quiet feeling, peace. And as you drift even deeper into stillness, the boundaries between sound and silence begin to fade completely. The hanging gardens are no longer something you can clearly sense, not because they are gone, but because they are no longer separate from you. Everything becomes softer, quieter, slower. Even the idea of movement feels distant now, like something that belongs to another time. There is only calm, only presence, only the gentle rhythm of stillness that holds everything together. You do not need to understand anything anymore. You do not need to follow anything. All that remains is this quiet sense of being, light, soft, endless. The sound of water, the breath of wind, the memory of stone and garden, all of it fades into a single quiet feeling, peace. And now there is nothing left to follow. No path, no sound, no direction. Only a deep and quiet stillness that surrounds everything equally. The hanging gardens are no longer a place in your mind, not even a memory. Just a soft presence, blending into the calm of the night. Even time feels distant now, as if it has slowed down enough to disappear completely. There is no movement forward and no return. Only the feeling of being held gently by something vast and peaceful. You are not thinking anymore, not searching, not observing, just resting. The air feels weightless. The silence feels complete. And in that completeness, everything softens even more. Thoughts dissolve before they form. Feelings dissolve before they rise, until only calm remains. A calm that does not change, a calm that does not move, a calm that simply is. You are not separate from it anymore. You are part of it. And as the night continues without end, you continue with it, gently, quietly, and completely at rest. And now even the thought of continuing begins to fade, not as something lost, but as something that is no longer needed. Everything has already softened into stillness. There is no direction left to follow, no distance left to cross. Only this quiet, endless calm. It does not grow. It does not shrink. It simply remains, like the gentle space between thoughts, like the pause between breaths. You are no longer holding on to anything, not even awareness itself. Just resting deeply, quietly, without effort. The world feels far away now, not gone, just unimportant in this moment of peace. And yet, nothing is missing. Everything feels complete. The stillness does not ask anything from you. It does not guide you. It does not shape you. It simply holds you gently, without resistance. And in that holding, you begin to let go even more. Not into sleep, not into wakefulness, but into something softer than both. A place where nothing needs to continue, and nothing needs to end. Only calm remains. And you remain with it, fully at ease, fully still, and completely at rest. And now, there is nothing more to continue. No story left to follow, no place left to reach. Only this final stillness, soft, complete, and endless. The garden, the city, the night. All of it gently fades away, not disappearing suddenly, but slowly, like a distant dream losing its shape. What remains is calm. Pure, quiet calm. You do not need to think anymore. You do not need to follow anything. There is only rest, deeper than thought, softer than silence. And as this moment settles completely, even the feeling of time begins to dissolve. There is no before, no after, only now, stretching endlessly, without effort, without change. You are safe here, completely at ease. Nothing is required of you anymore. And so, you simply rest, gently, quietly, fully at peace. And the night continues, without end, as you drift deeper into calm. And now even that final sense of continuation begins to soften. There is nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to follow. only a deep and quiet presence that fills everything equally. The idea of distance fades. The idea of movement fades. Even the feeling of you becomes lighter, softer, almost weightless. Everything is still here, and yet nothing needs to be noticed anymore. The world does not end. It simply becomes quiet. Like a long breath slowly settling into silence. There is no effort in this place, no direction, no urgency, only calm. A calm that does not ask for attention, a calm that does not change. You are not moving toward anything now. You are simply resting within what already is. Soft, still, endless. And as this quiet continues, even that awareness begins to gently fade into peace, until there is nothing left to do and nothing left to become. Only rest, only stillness, and you remain there, completely calm, completely quiet, and gently at sleep. Long before great empires ruled